Are we ready? Hello, 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 all. It's so glad to see you all. Gracie, I don't have that code. Yes, I said that online. It doesn't really matter. We are here with Beyond the Noise, and we are excited to be here because this is the place we like to live where we can get past the surface rhetoric, where we can get past all of the, yeah, we work hard, yeah, we tried this, yeah, we did everything we could to make these happen. But at the same time, what we try to do is make people understand exactly what we mean by the things that we are saying. I am so excited today to have back with us the round-faced Mexican girl, Miss Gracie Dagnino. See, Gracie has been out saving the whales. I understand that she jumped in the ocean and she took 5 rings, you know those 6-pack plastic things that covers her. She saved 5 fish from choking to death like that. And she helped a man in the middle of the road, and she pushed his car out the road. So she's been busy for the past 2 weeks. Grace, so what's been going on? You got to talk loud. People don't want to hear you whisper. Go with it. What?
Nothing. I have been staying behind, not saving whales, but actually taking care of PE and the clients that are there as we finish out the programs for 2020 and start up something to get them going into the new year with the 6-week transformation challenge.
Talk to them about the 6-week transformation challenge. Now, all of these women on here listening to this that keep going, I need to lose a couple of pounds. I really want to be able to do something. I don't want to go to the gym. How can we help them?
Okay, so how it works is for 6 weeks starting next Monday or Tuesday, depending on what program you enter. And we have multiple time slots. You have exercise, you have food, you have accountability, you have biweekly weigh-ins, and then at the end of all those things, you get some prizes or giveaways or things that you look forward to getting because you work towards it.
So if you had a chance to work with us over the past 7 or 8 years, you know how I feel about that. So before we get off air today, Grace, so what I need you to do is I need you to go to the website. I need you to send them that transformation portal. If anybody is serious about being serious about their health and wellness and not just trying to fit into a dress or make sure that you feel sexy at the Thanksgiving dinner that you're going to be having over Zoom, I really, that's a hilarious joke. I don't know why y'all didn't laugh. I really want you to at least take a look, come in, see if we can help you and let us help you. If you are a young athlete, Grace O, talk to them about the speed school stuff that we got going on.
So we also have 6 weeks of speed going on that where the kids will get to come in 3 times a week. We'll work on speed mechanics, enhancement, teaching them proper movements when it comes to things like the shuttle, teaching them how to run a 10-yard split according to their sport, things like that. And then they also get tested in and tested out. Instead of being weighed in, we take preliminary tests or pre-tests and then post-tests as well.
Speed can be taught, or the mechanics of speed to make you more efficient can be taught. All of you parents who are trying to make your kids better, just give us a chance to at least tell you the things that we see so you can go work on them. Today's show is special for me for these reasons. I have a really good friend. Now, you guys have heard me say that for about 25 episodes. This is a friend of mine. But I'm going to be honest in this one. Those other guys, they were cool, and a lot of them were my friends or are my friends. But this gentleman gave me my first opportunity to prove that I could actually make an impact on these young kids' lives. And when I say he gave me an opportunity, I was walking down the hall, the 6th grade hallway at Everman Elementary, and I got a phone call. And it was the gentleman sitting to my right, and he said, G, you want to coach some football? And I said, yeah. He said, all right, well, meet me in Kansas this weekend. And that is how my football career started. And I understand he did it for one word, and it has humbled me ever since. It is trust. And we have been friends since 1997. He embraced me as I walked on campus at TCU. This young man is from Friendswood, Texas. Really good athlete, really great coach, but an amazing human being. He has a beautiful wife, 3 beautiful daughters. He is one of the few black athletic directors in the state of Texas, and even more importantly, he is one of the few black athletic directors at a private school in the state of Texas. He is so humble. The athletic director took the job as a defensive coordinator in order to make the team better and allow the people who were there to continue a tradition of winning. Ladies and gentlemen, a man who leads with service and figures out the rest along the way, Mr. Andre Bruce. Dr. Dre, what's going on today, brother?
What's going on, G? Thank you for all that. You said a lot there, and I do appreciate everything that you said.
Man, I mean every word of it, man, because I know what you've done for me and what you've done for a lot of us. So let's talk about the journey, man. I think it's important when we start that we talk about how you got to where you are, and then we'll get into what you did and why it was important to you.
Sure.
So you are a high school cat coming out of Friendswood, Texas. It's a lot of talent everywhere. And Pat Sullivan and those guys come into your home and say they want you to play football at TCU. Talk to us about how that started and how you got there.
Yeah, so, that part of Houston at that time was growing and really developing. And so I was fortunate enough to go to one of the newer high schools in that area of town. And because of that, we were able to accumulate quite a bit of talent.
Really?
On that team. And so there was a core group of guys that I competed with, that I played with over my high school years, that brought a lot of attention to me, our team, because they were phenomenal athletes. I was not the best athlete on our team by any
what you
means. And so those guys, their abilities gave me an opportunity to be seen as well.
So their play, their accolades, their abilities put eyes on y'all, and you did enough to be seen, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And we did. We would feed off of one another. I've told you this before. I was motivated by fear in those days. I did not want to be seen as the lesser of my core group of friends. I wanted to be the cream of the crop.
Stop right there. You were motivated by fear.
I was.
What were you afraid of?
Whether it was academics, athletics, whatever it is, I wanted to be seen amongst my peers as being the cream of the crop, as being the guy. And so whether you consider it being motivated by fear or see it as being competitive, that was something that really would drive me to the level that I've achieved.
So you didn't run from fear. Like, don't be scared. It was like, yeah, I need this to push me to do that.
Absolutely.
Does that still hold true today?
To some degree, obviously the older you get, the more you develop self-awareness and comfort in your own skin, and knowing who you are. You develop your own self-worth so that your skin's a lot tougher, and you don't rely upon those that feedback in order to feel accomplished or as if you're moving in the right direction.
Man, that makes so much sense. So you're coming out of there and people start paying attention. Who was paying attention to you when you were getting recruited?
So in those days, this pre-social media.
Yeah, help them understand what we had to go through in recruiting.
Yeah.
Like, help them understand getting seen. Getting seen is nothing like being seen today. So let's help these young athletes understand what we actually had to do in order to have a chance.
Right. So social media did not exist. Email was in its infancy, if that. And I remember, and after my junior year, my father coming into my room, bringing me a packet of mailing slips. And his plan was we were going to make VHS tapes and pack these mailing slips and mail them out to all the colleges that I, in my mind, envisioned myself playing for. Again, in those days, email, text messaging, all that didn't exist. So
Right.
if you were being recruited, it was through the mail.
And if you missed a call, you
Yeah.
missed a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're being recruited, it's through the mail. So one of the things we would do is when we got to the locker room every day, we would look in our locker to see how many letters
Yep.
we had, and we would compare the number of letters we had received from numerous schools.
Yep.
But the indicator, when you really knew you were doing well in recruiting, was if you received a handwritten letter. And so I say all that to say this: when it all came down to it, all the letters, and when I packed up my mother's house, I packed up numerous shoeboxes full of letters.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came down to it, I really did. I had an offer from TCU, the University of Tulsa, and the University of Hawaii.
Okay, so you had Hawaii, Tulsa, TCU. At that time, all mid-majors, all around the same level of play, but you were a D1 athlete. Before I ask the next question, everybody online that was recruited anywhere between the years of 2002 all the way back to 95, put a thumbs up if you were a letter guy. Put 2 thumbs up if you still got some of them letters. Because I still got a box of letters. Mississippi State, LSU.
Oh, yeah.
Florida State, all of that other good stuff. But I was only recruited. I got handwritten letters from Nicholls State, Samford in Alabama, which we'll talk about soon. And then TCU never really gave me a handwritten letter because they called me. Sure. And we were late in the process. So why TCU?
The late Charlie Rizzo did a phenomenal job recruiting me. The joke is, I think had I not signed those scholarship papers, my mother may have attempted to sign those papers and sued up herself.
Yeah.
Because Charlie Rizzo had sold her that much on TCU. So that was a big part of it. I was also smart enough to realize that I needed to be close to home. Within reason, I did want to get away from home and not be in Houston or at U of H. But I also knew that at the end of the day, I was a mama's boy, and I wanted to be able to get back to home as much as possible. Now, don't think I didn't try to go to Hawaii.
Right.
My mother informed me I could go, but she didn't know how to make it home for Thanksgiving, Christmas, summer breaks, and so once that star kind of lost its shine of being in Hawaii and all those things, I realized that TCU Fort Worth was the place for me. Not to mention, my sister at the time was a senior at North Texas, my oldest sister, I should say, and then my grandparents, or my grandmother was living in Denton, the Dallas area, so North Texas was already kind of home for me as well.
Let me take this let me sidestep this for a second. So you're not a first generation college graduate, okay? So did you feel like going to school for you and graduating was a mandatory thing to uphold a legacy, or is it something that you wanted to do, or was football the main driver?
No, because I didn't come to realize that receiving an athletic scholarship was possible until after my junior year, and I began to receive some attention. That's when a scholarship truly became a goal. Prior to that, I'm just playing a game that I love. I've been doing this for so long. Just let me get out there with my friends and compete.
So the goal was not to get a college scholarship. It was, I got a chance, so let me see where this goes.
Absolutely. My mother, my parents obviously stressed education. My mother was a nurse. My father worked in the chemical plants there in South Houston. And obviously always preached education and all those things. My sister in my family, extended family even, was one of the first family members to receive a college degree or to attend college. So that was a part of it. But for me, my options were, if I don't go to college, then I was considering a military career. And that was okay with me.
So you were good with the structure to going in the military situation?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you had a different thought process going into the athletics. So you get on campus, and you're a frog now. What was that transition like from being a good athlete on a really good team that gets a chance to go play to being a good athlete on a terrible team that has to go play?
Yeah.
Let me say this first. TCU was bad for about 6 years. the TCU you guys see today that looks pretty bad today, we looked like that all the time. We didn't have those kind of athletes. We didn't have that kind of shine. Our uniforms looked fluorescent, purple. Everything was bad. But we were there.
Sure.
How was that for you?
So the transition for me really was, it was difficult on a personal level for me. My parents had gone through a transition, and so it wasn't just a young man leaving home. Mm-hmm. It was a young man leaving home dealing with a parental group that had decided to divorce and go separate ways. In a lot of ways, I was still trying to figure out who I was as a young man, as an individual. And that's part of the reason I'm so thankful for the relationship that my mother had with Charlie Rizzo, and then the friendships that I formed in those early days at TCU. There was a point, and I tell young kids now that go on and play college athletics, there was a point, and this is, mind you, this is back in the days when the freshmen reported for 2 days ahead of the veterans.
Yep, 3 days before.
And so there was a point where I remember I went back to the dorm room and the lights were off in the room, and I sat on the edge of the bed and I had a conversation with myself and said, is this really what you want to do?
Wow. So I have to ask, continuing your career was not a goal, it became an option that you pursued.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a well-rounded individual, right? And so I wanted to be more than just an athlete. But that conversation was less about, and this is hindsight, it was less about athletics or football. It was more about developing the person that I was going to be in future years.
How do you, Dre, how do you do that? How do you think like that at 16, 17, 18 years old? How do you take, because that's a different concept for a high school kid who he's known for the name on his back. He's known for the accolades when people see you. I see you, young man, do your thing, you going to TCU. They're basically projecting and predicting your future. Sure. And NFL this and these things, but to be able to ground yourself and ask yourself questions beyond surface thoughts. How do you encourage kids at that age to see the world the way you saw it at that age?
So it was less about me. I did not, that was learned. I didn't acquire that knowledge or that reasoning, that understanding on my own.
Was it taught or was it learned?
It a little bit of both.
Okay.
And here's what I mean by this. Football afforded me a lot of opportunity. Football shaped me from a very young age. Football raised me in some ways. But more than anything, my parents and the experiences that they placed me in, the environments that they placed me in at a young age, helped shape me and form me so that I could have that conversation with myself at that point. Anything that football has afforded me, my parents have done that tenfold.
Explain.
I'll put it to you this way. And you know, we were just talking about the Sun Bowl and GMAC, Mobile, Alabama Bowl, all those things. And we've got bowl rings. In my coaching career, I've acquired some of those things as well. Do you know what my fondest memory is from football?
What?
And I can still visualize it. It was as that 6-year-old kid going to sign up for Little League football, finding out I was too young, having tears in my eyes, and my father's taking me, signing me up for soccer, saying, you're going to do something. And then the following year, when I was age appropriate, going to pick up my equipment, having that equipment, my father take me in the backyard, putting my helmet on me, putting my shoulder pads on me, showing me how to do all of that, building that relationship so that my father and I had a common bond outside of anything else that's lasted truly a lifetime.
So he connected you to a thing that brought you two together.
Correct.
And that's how you conduct your business today, basically. Correct. So you go into, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with a great friend of mine, Andre Bruce, a gentleman who gave me my first coaching job I was an elementary school teacher, And he pulled me out of teaching into yelling and screaming at 17 and 18-year-old kiddos in the middle of Kansas, where everything was way different than anything I had ever experienced.
Different lifestyle, for sure.
Way different. So you're 1998. Let's go back. 1997. You get all us knuckleheads in there, and basically the class that the people like to say began the movement that TCU is towards now. But I believe you guys, the leaders from that hard 97 year going into 98, was basically the pillars for what we did. Now, you see athletes coming in, and you see athletes being better and being able to help. And that year, it was 5 corners recruited. How'd that make you feel?
I didn't pay much mind to that part of it. Here's what I noticed. One, Coach Sullivan and the staff had done an excellent job recruiting. They had out-recruited me. That's their job. That's what they should have done, right? And then I recognized that you guys were tremendous athletes. Physically, you were impressive. You could do things that I simply could not do. Again, that goes back to self-awareness. And I'm not saying I wasn't going to compete. I wasn't just going to hand it away. But I recognized at that point, my role had to change. I had to take on more of a leadership role, not in the sense of let me lead this football team, but let me lead this group of rowdy freshmen that cause all this ruckus, and let me help put them on the right path.
And please help the crowd understand when you say rowdy, because we were like, what did you see? Because you were a senior. That was it for you. Like that 98 year was your going out party, and you see us coming in, and we're nothing like what we're walking into.
Sure.
Instead of fighting against that, what made you embrace that?
It was, again, self-awareness. Me helping you guys didn't take away from who I was or what I was going to be. And so I had no problem helping take a young group of guys that lacked some of the experience that I had. And not to mention, the same process had happened with me as a freshman and a sophomore. So we're coming out of the Southwest Conference in my freshman year, and I had guys like Cedric Allen. I had guys like Coy Woods. I had guys like Basil Mitchell, Chris Brasfield pull me in the right direction.
So helping was just a part of what you wanted to do.
And it was a part of the program as well.
And then Sun Bowl was your first bowl.
Sun Bowl was my first bowl game.
Talk about that experience.
December 31st, 1998.
Loved it.
Had I been able to cut out a piece of that turf, I would have.
Why is that?
Because I knew it was my last game.
Yeah.
And I knew I was not ready to be finished with that chapter of my life, my involvement in football. And that's really when my evolution began.
Playing or your involvement?
That was the end of my playing career.
But, I mean, you weren't ready for the playing to end or your involvement?
My involvement.
Okay.
My involvement. I wasn't. I've been doing it since I was 7 years old. I wasn't ready to say, okay, I'm going to put this away and pick up something else now.
Do you think your identity was wrapped in that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So how did you make that transition?
It was slow and steady. It wasn't immediate. And so my evolution began. Fortunately, our mentor, one of our mentors, Chris Thurman, had encouraged me to pursue a coaching career. The late Mike Farda, who was the head coach at Irving Nimitz, I'd worked for him for 2 years. He had encouraged me the same way, even offered me a job early on. And so because of those people speaking into my life, it gave me the confidence I needed to pursue coaching as a profession, as a passion.
Man, you said something powerful, so I'm trying to understand it. I want you to let the parents and anybody else that's listening to the show right now. Right now we're here with Andre Bruce, who is the athletic director at Cistercian in Irving. Been in the Cistercian for 12 years now. Been athletic director for 8 years. You said something really powerful just then. It was, for me, my career ended abruptly. So I had a chance to to play on the number 5 defense in the nation, number 1 defense in the nation, 2-time all conference. I get picked up as a free agent with the Redskins. I'm walking off the field on a Friday. Jerry Holmes comes. I see him. Hey, Greg, let me talk to you. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to talk to you right now, Jerry, but puts his arm around me and basically tells me that we're sending you home. Sure. That was the last time I was a part of a team where I had a helmet, my name on the back of a jersey, and it was abrupt. And when I say abrupt, it was go take a shower, turn in your playbook, talk to Marty Scheidenheimer, pick up your last check, pick up your ticket. He's gonna pick up your clothes, go to the airport. Sure. But my identity was wrapped in the success and failure that I had on the field. So I was forced to see if I could be or if I was somebody else or who I was outside of that uniform. But you said that you had the opportunity to take a step back and realize who you were becoming. How would you give some guidance to that 17-year-old who's hoping to play D1 but things aren't working out the way he wants, or that super fast wide receiver at that mid-major who may not get that chance to play in the NFL and that's all he sees is that goal? What kind of information, not necessarily advice, because many of us hardheads don't take advice.
Sure.
What information could you give based on your experience and your outlook that you think would be helpful?
Yeah, so first, I think that's a lot of pressure for young people to carry. That's a lot of pressure for us as adults to put on children for them to have that feeling that they've got to fund their education through sports, through athletics, through a scholarship. Mm-hmm. I certainly respect and understand the business side of it. Obviously, I'm a beneficiary of that experience. Mm-hmm. I'm not knocking it whatsoever, but I think it creates some negative effects in young people when we put that kind of pressure on them. Mm-hmm. But to the young people, I would say this. Don't necessarily focus on the scholarship itself. Focus on doing all the little things that lead up to that. Aim small, miss small, right? Mm-hmm. So if I see too much in my scope, I'm going to miss my shot. Mm-hmm. But if I narrow my focus and I knock each target down one by one by one, then eventually I have the success that I want and I desire.
So the main question is, what are some of the targets that they need to be knocking down in order to have an opportunity to be seen?
Sure. Obviously, the first and foremost is academics. It's becoming increasingly more popular or easy to find the star athlete, right? Mm-hmm. Those are a dime a dozen. But make yourself stand out academically so that recruiters, colleges understand that I'm getting a whole person. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting a half a person. Mm-hmm. It's not someone that I'm going to have to stay on top of about their study skills, their habits, things of that nature. That's number one. Number two is be a good person. Mm-hmm. Okay? And these aren't necessarily in order, but be a good person. One of the things that I would do when I was coaching college football and recruiting is when I walked into the school office or the school building, you'd see a young lady or a young man walking through the hall, and I'd just grab them and I'd say, hey, tell me about Greg Walls. Mm-hmm. And these students didn't know who I was. It was probably a little bit weird to them.
You taught me that.
But they would give me tons of information that I could not get from those that are promoting this young person. Mm-hmm. I want, the counselors, the coaches, or whatever it is, they're selling you on these kids. But their classmates, they'll tell the whole story. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing, being a good person. And then obviously working on your craft, right? The preparation, physical, mental, being a student of the game. And then most importantly, just being successful at the level that you're at. Don't worry about getting to the next level. Be the best high school football player you can possibly be.
Say that again. Say that louder.
Yeah. Be the best high school athlete, whether it's football, basketball. Don't worry about all the other things. If you're not dominating on Friday night or Thursday night or Tuesday, it's impossible for you to do that on Saturday.
We are in a great conversation, in my opinion, with old Dr. Andre Bruce. Great. So, you got anything online? You got any comments? You got anybody with anything to say? You got anything coming up that people want to hear about or know about?
Yeah, there's a few things on here. So earlier, you asked me to put down 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't read them, the 2 questions, the first one being, what is the major motivator that pushes you to succeed in athletics, your career, your personal life? And then the second one being, what qualities does a coach or athletic director need in order to help young athletes succeed?
Mm-hmm.
And then Paul Robinson chimed in, I believe, for the first question, not to disgrace the ancestors of whose shoulders I stand upon and try my best to reach one. Then I've done my job.
That's powerful.
Corey Masters said, man, I would have took that Hawaii offer in a heartbeat. George Lane says hi to Andre.
Man, Big Purdy. That's my guy.
And then the second question, Paul Robinson says, coaches, etc., have to have the 3 I's: intelligence, integrity, intensity. Most important, the 5 P's theory. Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
No doubt about it. No doubt about
And
it.
Nika thinks you're super cool.
Dre, let me ask you a question, man. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. I know you did some GA work. I know you stepped out and did some Adams coursework. What was your first real coaching job with a coaching title?
It would have been, I guess, 99, 2000.
Mm-hmm.
I'd spent a semester or 2 student assistant helping Coach Patterson, Coach Thurman defense staff. Had gone back to Adams course, and then I came back. And my first full-time job was assistant director of football operations.
Okay. How'd that go for? Because so you went from player, GA, Adams course, assistant director of football ops. So that means travel, kids, setup, grades, all of those other things. What was that experience like, and what did it teach you about the structure of handling the business of athletics?
Yeah, it was eye-opening, and I did. I saw the business side of things firsthand. I understood better how a staff works together, works in unison. Everyone has a role. I also learned the importance of trust and having faith and allowing, hiring good people and then allowing them to do their job. And so I'll never forget, my first day on the job, we've got a mail out that's got to go, and a lot of that job was recruiting. But there's a mail out that's got to go out to some 300 or so athletes, and Charlie North, the great man that he was, and
Kill him with kindness, man.
Charlie wasn't really tech savvy and understanding how to do a mail merge and print labels and get this mail out. He wasn't much help, and so I literally spent a day teaching myself how to do this because I knew there had been a lot of trust extended to me. They had a lot of faith in me to complete this task. So, the business aspect of it, the recruiting aspect of it, was a big part of that job and that role.
Okay, and you go from that into a coaching role where?
So actually, Coach Fran had left at the end of the 2000 season and had gone on to Alabama, taken a lot of the support staff, the infrastructure that was there in place. Coach Patterson obviously remained, and Coach Patterson, I give a lot of credit to. He helped me tremendously when he probably didn't have to, because he came in like we've talked about during my senior year, and I was on my way out. But Coach Patterson gave me my opportunity as a defensive GA, and that was at TCU, and I remained with some of the guys that we played with, and took on more of a on the field role.
And when you did that, so we had to take a different approach with Dre, and that was hard for us because you went from Dre, the guy who was at training table with us, the guy who watched the highlights on Friday with us, the guys who took the video test with us, the laugh and the joke and the playing, to Coach Bruce.
So
You know
from
what I'm
peer to
saying?
professional?
Yeah, so that transition for your group, because we respected you, wasn't very difficult, but how we're the same age, so how was that, and how did you maintain a moniker of respect with the people that you had just got off the battlefield, well, now you're giving them direction.
Sure. So as I think back on it, I always try to give you guys respect, regardless, whether it's my senior year or moving into that coaching role. I try to respect you guys as individuals and not force anything.
Right.
Just let it come naturally. And I think that was the case. Obviously, as a young coach, you're trying to figure out who you are, what your identity is, what your philosophy is. And in some ways, I call it the tale of the story of two Garys, because this is how it's played out in my life. So as a young man, I understood the role that my father played, and I tried to emulate him in a lot of ways. And I learned that, those things worked for him, but that didn't necessarily mean it was going to work for me.
Got it.
And then from a professional standpoint, I've been around Gary Patterson long enough that when I started coaching, I tried to coach like him. But that wasn't healthy.
But that wasn't you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, enough about you. I'm here with Andre Bruce, and I've watched him work, so I'm going to lead into this. Dre is one of the most selfless, authoritative people that I've ever met. And anybody who's ever worked with him knows that. And the goal for you many times is the overall situation. You also find yourself in positions where your primary, or the thing that's most important to you, or your number one, what do they call it? It's the most important thing to a person. Priority is not your player's priority. And at Emporia, football wasn't number one for 90% of those kids. At Samford in Alabama, football wasn't number one for 90% of those kids. At Cistercian, football ain't number one for any of those kids. How do you get a moniker of success? What are you teaching these kids and these parents that even though football isn't the number one, you keep finding ways to make them successful? Like, what are you doing? What are the things that you're trying to instill in these young men to help them grow as good athletes but better people? And I want everybody to listen to this.
Yeah. So first of all, you've got to have a servant attitude and to be in this profession.
That's the fourth guest in 4 weeks that have led with that statement. It's
true. And I quickly wanted to say this because it was an evolution. So we talked about that Sun Bowl game and me walking off the field, and I don't want to be done. And that was solely about me. That was about me, my enjoyment, football, so on and so forth. And so I entered this career in football and athletics, and it's all geared towards my passion for football. And then I find myself in Birmingham, Alabama, Samford University, and I'm in my meeting room, and I'm speaking with my boys, and we're talking about everything other than football in that moment. And for me, it was a light bulb moment, because I realized while football is important in my life, it's a passion. What was really driving me is having an impact on young people, young men in particular. And so while football was the vehicle that I was driving, even had I not been a football coach, I still would have been impacting the lives of young people. And so that's a starting point for what you're talking about. So now when you ask me, what am I teaching these boys? What am I teaching these parents to be successful? Well, it's to appreciate the distance traveled. So I meet these young people, these parents, whatever, where they are today, but I'm coaching them for the people that they're going to become tomorrow. And then I don't need you. I don't need you to necessarily be the best athlete, the top athlete. I want you to enjoy the distance that you've traveled. You started here, and look at how far you've come.
This is
Don't
where we
fear
are.
the failure. Press into it, lean into it, and become all that you can be.
So don't fear the failure. Understand that fear is real and failure is an option.
Absolutely.
But you can use that, basically, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
So, Dre, how are you successful in a place where there is no commonality? those kids don't look like you. Those kids did not live like you. Those kids haven't been coached or acted in ways that you do, yet they respect you. You're at an all-boys Catholic school where football is third or fourth, and you are the minority in a major position. Why do those kids listen to you and respect you?
Because it's not about me. I'm not successful. We're successful. I have a staff of coaches. We're like-minded. We pursue the same goal, the same passion, educating young men every day. And so the more that we can deposit into those young people, the more that we can withdraw, the more they'll do for us. And so we just focus on depositing into those young people on a regular basis, building them up. And as you well know, much like I said, one of our mentors, Chris Thurman, if you love your coach enough, there's nothing you won't do for him.
There is no doubt about it. Chris Thurman coached me 98, 99, and 2000, and we talk every week. And we talk about everything outside of football, unless we're talking about football schematics. Here with Andre Bruce, he's giving us all kinds of nuggets. Great, so what you got on the line over there?
Nothing too crazy since last. They just have a lot of agreements with him
Cool.
on the servant part especially.
Cool.
A lot of people seconding that.
Got it. So, Dre, you are at a place, you've done quite a bit of winning, and you've seen quite a bit of things happen. But we're living now in a difficult time. We're living in a time where the sensitivity is high, cultural honesty is low, and color does matter in the United States of America. You're one of the few black athletic directors in a private school setting, but you get and you control and you demand respect. What's the most difficult thing at this time for you now when communicating with these players as well as new coaches coming into a space where they might not agree with the rules, they might not agree with having to wear a mask, they might not agree with social distancing, they might point fingers at because you're the messenger or you're the one that gives the information of somebody else making a call. How do you deal in that without leading with your feelings?
Yeah,
tough question, I know.
that is that is, and I do. I lead every morning with prayer because I've not figured that out.
Yeah.
Yet I'm not sure that I've mastered that. But this is what I know. We're our coaches. We are all paid to do a job, and our personal opinions are exactly that. There are our personal opinions, and so we have policies, we have procedures that our administration have given us, and it's our job to carry that out to the best of our abilities.
Okay. Now, Gracie is over there tearing up the mic. She keeps getting her hair stuck on everything. So I don't know what's going on over there on that side of the world, but I am trying to understand how you keep that constant motivation because you guys aren't even playing this year.
Yeah.
So how do you keep those kids upbeat with the understanding that, you know, your last game may literally be your last game or your last opportunity may come at a abrupt halt or that you're a coach without a defined end product, without a season. How do you stay motivated in that space in order to keep leading these young athletes?
It is a challenge, but keep in mind, we're not just teaching sport, right? We're teaching life skills. We're teaching life lessons. We're teaching principles that are going to go way beyond any season, any sport. But them specifically with the boys, because that really is my greatest concern. With our boys, trying to give them ownership back in the program, allowing them to speak their piece in some ways and voice their frustration, but sharing that process about the direction that we're going when we go forward. So our leadership council that we formed in our athletic department, I meet with those students and we run through a list of items and the agenda, and then those 14 students go out to their peers, their classmates, and kind of get feedback, and then it's just a continuous back and forth, give and take.
What's the most important thing for a high-level athlete to understand as they go into their next phase of maybe D1 or D1AA or getting a chance for somebody to pay for them to go to school? What's the most important thing for them to understand going forward? That's question one. The second one is the same way. The mid-level athlete that's hoping for an opportunity, what's the most important thing for them to understand as well?
Okay, so your first question, I think the most important thing for athletes to understand that this is a business transaction, right? You are trading your athletic abilities, your athletic skills in exchange for an education. And it is your responsibility. It is up to you, not anyone else, the university, the coaches. It is your responsibility to ensure that 4 or 5 years later you walk away from that experience having gained a return on your investment of time and energy. And then those second tier, those mid-major athletes that you talk about, it's difficult to do. It really is, but remove the ego from the equation. And what is your primary goal? If your primary goal is to compete at the next level, then it really shouldn't matter if it's Sam Houston State or Texas Christian University. What you're looking for is that opportunity to compete and to get to that next level.
So how do you help them understand that? Do you help them understand that through positive affirmation, optimism, or a path? Like, how do you help them understand that?
I think you have to have realistic conversations with them. You have to show them the pathway. You have to show them. Our head football coach, he does a phenomenal job. And any young man that has the desire to be recruited or has that ability, our head coach can pull him into his office. He can pull up an Excel spreadsheet, and he can show him every college, every university he's contacted, what the feedback is. And in that instance, it's not the coach that's holding the young man back. Here's the proof. It's in the pudding, right? I've reached out to these people, and this is what they say. And so having honest conversations, transparent conversations with young people is very fruitful.
Are you having honest conversations with yourself, the person that you have trying to become? Are you becoming that person? And what are the hardships in order to max out your ability to be the best you specifically can be in a role like this?
Me individually, yeah, it is difficult for me because I try to be selfless. And I worked for an athletic director several years ago, and one of the comments he made was, you guys don't work for me, I work for you. Your players don't play for you, you coach for them. And so I've kind of used that in my career, and so it makes it difficult to think about me and pursue some of my goals, and so I don't focus on it. I just trust that, much like every other phase of my life, if I continue to work hard, eventually I'll get what I deserve. But I'm in the business of serving these young people, serving our coaches, providing them with the resources they need to be successful.
So you lead with service, and then you let the rest of it be ancillary.
Absolutely.
So, but do you aim at something specific? And I'm asking that, because Mike Sinkfield was on the show last week, and I can't stop thinking about this. Mike Sinkfield, we know Mike. Mike goes from equipment guy to the guy.
Sure.
And it took him 17 years. But he kept saying that he never really pursued that one thing that he was going after, so his success kept growing and expanding. Sounds like you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, my focus has never been on a title, on a position. My career has kind of worked out the way it has by chance in some ways.
How is that, man? You're going to have to start explaining that, because we're taught, Gracie, I want you to say that, we're taught everywhere we are, in the first day, we're building these blocks to get to this pinnacle. Or you're fighting for a championship. So these other 30 fights are for this one fight. or you playing this video game to get to the last level, and if you don't, you didn't succeed. How do you remove the ego from that all or nothing, or I belong to this, so I'll take all these steps, and we miss all the good things around us, to putting your head down, doing the thing you're doing the best you can do it, learn the most you can learn, and believe that it's going to grow? How do you let the cake bake? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think you have to redefine success. So if you subscribe to the idea that I'm only successful if I reach that end stage, that your reference to the video game, if I'm only successful if I win the championship, if I'm only successful if I achieve this position, this salary amount, or if you focus on those ideals alone and solely, in part, I think that's a miserable life to live, because there's always something else around the corner. There's always someone else that's going to knock you off that mountaintop. And so if you find value, again, in the distance traveled, and I cringe to use the word process, but in some ways, if you trust that you're learning a process that you can take and repeat time and time again in any area of your life, then you redefine what success means for you.
Wow. We're here with Dr. Dre. Grace, what you have?
Oh, nothing. I was just going to say it kind of reminded me of when you talked about hitting small goals instead of looking for one big one, right?
Sure.
It's almost like the saying where if you get so caught up in the final opponent, you miss the opponent that's right in front of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I think everyone's surrounded by with all the connection through internet and social media, this desire to want to be photogenic or look appeasing to the those around us, right?
Yeah.
And Greg, you'll remember this. I mean, it's this, and trust me, we were desperate enough to believe anything that a coach would have said to us in '98.
No doubt about it.
But when Fran came in and we did that whole pyramid or the whole triangle process with him, and at the top was to go to a bowl game, whatever it is. But at the bottom of that foundation, there were several landmarks or milestones that we had to accomplish in order to get to
the next step.
Yeah. So that's all it is. We're just applying that in other areas of athletics and our life in general.
It's just changing the approach of, like, it's good to complete these things. It's not, if you don't complete these things, Absolutely. you don't get this. So with that being said, fear is a motivator for you. Mm-hmm. You're a grown man, and you know, a lot of us grown black males have been taught that crying and being afraid are two things that you can't be and you can't do. Right? I have had to learn that those are two things that I need to do, and the older I get, I do more of it. Yeah. So, what are you afraid of today?
Oh, what am I afraid of? I don't have a whole lot of regrets, but my fear is that my time will be spent developing others, other young people, and I will miss opportunities with my young children, my three daughters. And you know this.
Yep. I know where you're going.
Where my diagnosis, my cancer diagnosis, was one of those times where I really looked back over my short life and said, if this is my time, do I want to continue investing my time in this way? And the answer was obviously yes, but that is a fear of mine, is that, you know, I'll reach the end of my life and I will have neglected my own children in some form or fashion.
So let me ask you this, because a lot of people that's listening, I'm pretty sure, especially your teammates, didn't know that you even had a cancer diagnosis. I had to find out. Why was it difficult for you to share that with the people around you that you knew would have your back and try to point you in directions to help you?
Two reasons. The first was I had to learn to receive. I've become so accustomed to giving giving.
Explain. I had to learn to receive. We got 6 minutes, and I really want to know what you mean by that.
Yeah, again, because I have such a servant's heart, and so I want to give to the community at the school, my church, my home, whatever it is, my family. I want to give, but I'd rarely taken a breath or time to truly learn to receive. And what I mean by that is I had to learn to allow someone to take care of me. I had become accustomed to taking care of others. That was a big part of it. The other part is I wasn't sure about my emotions, right? So I needed to get myself under control, come to grips with it to some degree, before I could allow others to know that reality and begin to speak into my life. Here's a difficult thing. In a situation like that, and we know this, it's difficult to know the right thing to say.
Right.
And people sometimes offend you,
Yes.
and they don't even mean to.
You're right.
And so I had to equip myself
For the comeback.
for that, and understand that I could handle those situations.
Were you afraid for your mortality?
Yes and no. Yes, because obviously I want to live.
You want to be around, yeah.
Be around. But I never had a why me moment.
That's the question I'm asking.
That was never a part of my process. I did have a what about my babies? And I did. I lost my mother to cancer in 2008.
Yeah, I remember that.
And as a 30-year-old man, I know how that affected me and still affects me to this day. And really and truly, I didn't want that for my own children. I want them to have a mother and father that are healthy and here supporting them.
Okay, so dealing with all these other people's kids and all these other people's parents, what are the two most important things that they can begin to understand as they grow? And I'll give you my two. Okay. The first one is, as a man, black, white, tall, short, as a man, learn to listen and not wait to talk. Learn to listen. Hear what's being said regardless of the tone, the person, the voice. Learn to listen. Number two, and we talked about this, that the things that people consistently say about you, you showed them. So what do you want people to see when they're watching your television show? I try to help these young kids understand that confidence is not something one can give you. It's something that can be instilled in you and you use it. But it comes from learning to listen and understanding what you want to project. Sure. So what are the two things that you can give to these young men that they're going to have to learn through experience and time, but those things that are going to help them on the journey?
Yeah, so number one, I think self-awareness. Grace, you talked about, this generation. This is a social media generation, and they're constantly confronted with images of what seems to be the norm or the popular or what the standard should be. And so I think self-awareness, first and foremost, understanding as best you can who you are on this earth and what you were created to do and what you bring to the table and what you have to offer.
How do you? For me, it's a feeling. Like it's inside. Like I know why I'm here, but it's because I know what gets me up in the morning. I know what frustrates me. I know what pushes me. Like I know why I'm here. I didn't know that until I was like 34. So how do you start finding that out when you're younger?
Yeah. So for me, again, it was learned. My upbringing, and I can't say this enough. My parents did such a phenomenal job, even though they made mistakes. They did such a phenomenal job of raising us, my sisters and I. that I understood who I was, even though it wasn't in its entirety, and I'm still learning to this day. But I always had a good idea of self-awareness, and it's part of the reason why I was able to steer clear of certain things as well. It's not to say that I'm a perfect individual or I was a perfect child.
I don't know. We've done some imperfect things together.
We won't talk about that.
Yeah, we're just gonna put it out there.
But it is that self-awareness will take you a long way. And then vision and organization, and this is something that I did learn much later, that as much as you try to prepare for it, when I became an athletic director at Cistercian, no one handed me a manual and said, this is how you do this job. Turn to page
You had to create it.
32. I had to create a vision, and then I had to organize us in a manner that would allow us to be successful.
Great. So you got anything before we got to get out? Anybody got any questions, comments, concern? Want to know what they think about Dre? He is the athletic director at Cistercian, one of the few black athletic directors in not just in Texas, but in a private school in Texas. And he continues to get these kids to win.
Yes, there's a few. Jack Brown has 2. He said, I've heard you mention personal identity several times. I believe that is one of the absolute foundations to a healthy and successful life, both in sports and outside of sports. I always teach kids sports is what you do, not who you are. And then he said, 2 weeks in a row now, the message is bloom where you're planted and everything will take care of itself.
Wow. That's what I'm learning. All right. We got to get it out of here. So, Grace, what are you going to leave the people with?
Me? Okay. I actually have one.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me pull it up.
Make sure they can hear it.
Okay. Evolution does not come to those who do not seek change.
In order to evolve, you got to be willing to let it happen. Dr. Dre, what would you leave the parents and the kids with to just become better people, especially in an environment where we spend a lot of time just trying to be right instead of working towards getting it right? Yeah, I said it.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I guess if I could leave you with anything, and you've heard this before, just keep in mind the things we do for ourselves, they die with us. The things we do for others last a lifetime. I don't think we can ever go wrong by investing in others. And iron sharpens iron.
There it is. You want to live forever? Let the people keep talking about you. I have had a ball, brother. You have left us with some nuggets. I am going to take 6 or 7 of your quotes, and I'm going to use them. This has been fantastic for me. Thank you, Kenny, for allowing us to be here on another wonderful Monday. And we are wrapping up right at time. We will see you next Monday. This is the hope. I'm telling you now, one of my great friends, we want to have Jamal Powell Cheese on the show. He is stage 4 cancer survivor. So when you see him come in here, it's going to be a treat. We will see you guys next Monday.